What is the most bizarre reason a customer got angry with you? Customer ordered a dish that always comes with French fries. Got mad when he got his French fries. Because he wanted bread. I apologized although I did nothing wrong and brought him some bread immediately. Problem solved, you'd think. But he then started yelling at me because apparently the restaurant always serves this with bread. I should have just agreed with him, but I foolishly didn't. He told me I was wrong. I told him I had worked there for 5 years already, that I knew I wasn't wrong, and I advised him to tell staff that he wanted bread when ordering next time. At this point he got red in the face and screamed that he knew better because he'd been a customer for 10 years already, which is rich, since the restaurant hadn't even been open that long. Long story short, the owner came over to his table. She supported me. The guy ate his food that must have been cold by then and never came back. I'll never forget his poor wife quietly trying to calm him down and to get him to let it go. She was incredibly embarrassed, but I doubt he even noticed. My first job was in the produce department of a local grocery store. One morning, a middle-aged woman came in and asked me if we have any organic pears in the back room because the ones up front didn't look great. I explained to her we would be getting our shipment in the following morning and she could come back then to pick some organic ones up. Or we have regular pears available in the next row. She did not like this. Aside from getting yelled at, she requested to speak with my manager, who also had to get an earful of complaints. This isn't anything super out of the ordinary and I was kind of used to the occasional upset customer. What killed me though is as she is about to walk away, she turns and says I'll be back tomorrow to get the pears. I don't know what my bird is going to eat today though. He has to eat organic. I was working at a bank that no longer exists back in 2005 as an operations supervisor of the teller line. I was working as a teller and it was a pretty busy day. Maybe the first or third of the month, so the line was out the door with people. There was a customer who was coming up to my window and he was very irate and frustrated with the line. Makes sense, we had all the tellers on the line and it was still a monster. He'd probably waited like 40 minutes. I don't know, it's a blur for me, feels like 8 hours passes in a blip on those days. Anyway, he gets up to the window and he throws his checkbook at me through the little slot in a huff and tells me he wants to withdraw some money. It's at this point I should tell you that he gives me his Wells Fargo account. But we are, unfortunately, a Washington Mutual. I tell him as such and he starts raising all hell, calling me a and catty and that I have an attitude. Now, people get seriously mad over money, so I've experienced a lot of hostility. I felt objectively bad for the guy but also shocked that he'd get so mad. He eventually called my manager over to complain about me. We apologized for my behavior and he eventually left. Some people seriously lash out when they up. Lady walked into my office, asking for one of my colleagues. I explained to her that he actually works out of a different office, which is listed in his email signature and our website. She was upset, as she had documents to drop off to him. I explained to her that his office is only 3 minutes down the street if she wanted to make the drive, or I could scan her documents and email them to him. She refused. So I said, well, you can leave them here with me and I can ask the guy to come pick them up tomorrow. She again said no, because she didn't trust me. I explained that I am the director of operations for the company, basically my colleague's boss. She then yells that she doesn't know me and this is extremely sensitive information and storms out. 1 minute later, she comes in and asks for my business card to prove I am who I say I am. I give her one, and she leaves her stuff with me and storms off again. Worked at Walmart and this guy went through my line buying something for his tires. He accidentally got 2 different things. One was a lot more expensive than the other. He got pissed looking at his receipt and demanded to know why one cost more money. I looked at the products and noticed one had some gel inserted in the product. I told him this and he demanded to know why this made the product more expensive. I explained to him I knew nothing about cars and was just a cashier, but he could go to customer service to exchange the more expensive product for the cheaper one. He then refused to leave my line until I lowered the price of the more expensive product. By the way, I was working the express checkout line on Friday at 5:30 and a huge line was forming behind this man-child. My manager finally got him to leave the line and go to customer service, though his son was in line behind him, and apologized for his father's actions. Got yelled at for saying no problem instead of you're welcome. I hate this so much. Your welcome signifies that I've done a favor for you, and now need praise. No problem signifies, well, that it wasn't a problem, and helping people is just what you do, Sharon. I was working at a coffee and wine bar when I had a man scream at me because he ordered the regular and I didn't know what he wanted. It was my first time meeting him, which catastrophically aligned with the first time I was left to take care of the register alone. I couldn't get away from the yelling, "Where the hell do you think you're going?" in order to ask the people in the back what he wanted. His regular got written out, laminated, and pinned to the cash register after that. He kept screaming, "Do you know who I am?" over and over. Which, no sir, I do not know who you are. This is the first time we met. Also, it turns out he was no one but a After I handed him his coffee, instead of saying thank you to him, L told him to have a nice day. He sent an email to corporate and my manager telling him I was rude to him because I didn't follow a company standard. Where do these people come from? Hell. I think I've told this story once in a post somewhere else. Probably with one of my old accounts. I used to work deli for a New England grocery chain, working in Vermont. Working in one of the bigger stores meant that we would often be loaned out during ski season to small stores with big holiday booms. It was very busy for them. About normal for my store. I was slicing cheese for a woman, who got real angry that I hadn't stacked her cheese perfectly straight, which blew my mind. Who expects deli sliced cheese to be stacked perfectly? The story has a happy ending though. Her exact, indignant words were, "Where I'm from in New York they stack the cheese perfectly straight." And the guy behind her, a regular the local employees had greeted by name, piped up and said, "Well then maybe you should go the back to New York." Best moment I've ever had at work. I used to live in New York and have never once been to a deli that stacked cheese perfectly straight. Wonder what magical instance of NY she lived in. Her parents bought her Kraft singles and told her it was deli sliced. The credit card terminal didn't work cause of technical issues, so something I had no control over and no power to fix as a cashier. Got yelled at by an older man who didn't understand how I could run a store like this. I was 17. I have two examples. One, I was a teller for almost 4 years when I was in college. And I remember getting yelled at and customers growing angry with me because they were low on money or had checks bounce or a plethora of other reasons due to them lacking funds. How the Sam Hill is that my fault? Also, in high school I worked at Toys R Us for a while and I caught a lady trying to shoplift. She flipped out and started calling me a racist. The GM came over and asked her to empty her bag if there was nothing to be found. Sure enough, there was a few pairs of baby shoes from the Babies R Us side of the store and a small toy. She threw the items on the ground and stormed off and intentionally knocked over one of our kiosk things. We reported it but nothing ever happened to her. Oh man, I saw some of the angriest customers I've ever seen back when I was a bank teller. I once had someone throw his checkbook at me and ask how the am I out of money when I still have checks. Someone also once tried to openly carry his handgun into the vault and accused me of violating his Second Amendment rights when I told him no way, no how. Get that out of here. Had an older gentleman order a food scale that was like a 10 pounds capacity. The platform was a few inches wide. He received it and called me yelling, "How the hell am I supposed to stand on this thing? We are a redistributor," and he was also upset that we sold a product with someone else's instructions and name on it. This lady at Walmart once got really pissed off at me because we didn't sell pasteurized eggs. And this wasn't the loud, screaming kind of pissed off. She just looked at me very intensely and spoke at low volume, over enunciating every syllable, and said, "Tell your managers to order pasteurized eggs." This other lady grabbed my arm and started pulling on me, telling me that the fact that we shut down our sewing department felt like we had killed her child, and that less and less people were going to come to Walmart because of stuff like that and that we would have to close down. A woman I had never met or seen in my life asked me where her kids were. I was confused and said, "I'm sorry, I don't know," and she yelled and asked where they put them. She stormed off angry at me. I never had a clue why she asked me. A customer came in to buy hand sanitizer. She brought her bottle to the register to purchase it, saw there was some at the register, then proceeded to share her vast knowledge of swear words with great vigor with me, swearing she would never shop with us again. What Clearly you should have known what she was there for. Stopped her at the door, and let her know it can be found at the register. I mean, how lazy are you? I was working at McDonald's. A customer complained that there was not a tomato on her Big Mac. I explained to her that Big Macs do not come with tomatoes unless special ordered. She then proceeded to sing the Big Mac song to me in front of a lobby full of customers, adding the word tomato into the song lyrics in an attempt to prove her point. I applied another discount to the total instead of the promoted discount to save her more money. Had to get into an argument with her just to explain I'm trying to save her more money. She wasn't having it. They noticed I had an accent. I'm from Southern Virginia and North Carolina area and pointed it out as Russian. I don't know how they possibly thought my accent was Russian, but I corrected them and they got angry that I was being condescending to them. I had a customer storm upstairs to customer services to make a complaint. Because we'd moved menswear upstairs, and he couldn't get upstairs because of his knees, so he went upstairs. About all I could do was call the support desk and apologize for what they were about to receive. That reminds me of the time my daughter was in the hospital. There was a kid maybe 5 to 6 from the sounds, slightly developmentally disabled. We learned later that was in a wheelchair and didn't want to go to physical therapy because she wasn't able to walk there, like physically she was unable to walk there. So to emphasize this point, she gets out of her wheelchair and runs up and down the hallway screaming that she can't walk to physical therapy. We could hear mom just dying laughing.